So, folks, the news is getting more hectic. Apparently, Thom Tillis, a senator out of North Carolina who has an election coming up in not even 2 years, has a primary challenge issued by President Trump for not voting for the big, beautiful bill. Now, this guy, Thom Tillis, you might look at him and you might say, 65-year-old white dude, what's so special about him? But what is exactly the special about him is that he's so unremarkable. He will go with the establishment. And as of literally minutes ago, the big, beautiful bill has been approved by the majority of the Senate, like 51 to 49. No JD Vance needed for the tiebreaker. But people like Thom Tillis, as well as Rand Paul, voted no on the bill. So the president writes this on Truth Social. Looks like Senator Thom Tillis, as usual, wants to tell the nation he's going to give him a 68% tax increase as opposed to the biggest tax cut in American history. At the same time, he is unable to understand the importance of debt extension, which Republicans gave to the Democrats just prior to the November 5th election because of its significance and how important it was for the future of the USA. Sadly, the Democrat politicians probably won't reciprocate on a debt extension because they're nasty people who actually hate our country. Tillis is also willing to throw the very important tobacco industry in North Carolina out of the window, end quote, for reasons nobody seems to understand. He loves China-made windmills that will cost a fortune, ruin the landscape, and produce the most expensive energy on Earth. I can't believe that the great people of North Carolina, a state that I love and won all three times, and a state that just brought back money, blood, sweat, and tears from the recent tragic floods when sleepy Joe Biden let them drown right up until the end of that administration without doing anything. I was given an A-plus rating for the job we did bringing it back, and Tillis, despite being a Republican, was missing in action. North Carolina will not allow one of their senators to grandstand in order to get some publicity for himself for a possible but very difficult re-election. America wanted reduced taxes, including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security, interest deductions on cars, border security, a strong military, and a bill which is great for our farmers, manufacturers, and employment in general. Thom Tillis is making a big mistake for America and the wonderful people of North Carolina. Now, if you read that memo against Thom Tillis, this is the off with their head gesture that Trump is posting right here, and I'll read it. Numerous people have come forward wanting to run in the primary against Senator, in quote, Thom Tillis. I will be meeting with them over the coming weeks, looking for someone who will properly represent the great people of North Carolina and, so importantly, the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, despite the fact that the bill managed to pass in the Senate, that does not mean that Thom Tillis is out of the woods yet. In fact, Donald Trump, by posting this, has validated a rumor that's been around for weeks at this point, which is that Thom Tillis ought to be primaried in 2026. Now, don't get me wrong, there are way worse culprits in the Senate. The swamp, although partially drained, is still a swamp, and there's, for that matter, Mitch McConnell, who is set to retire soon. And also people like Lindsey Graham, who's not going anywhere, but still a lot of people that you can get rid of, inclusively John Cornyn in Texas. That being said, Thom Tillis is still somebody that should be knocked out, and there are people that are running to see who can be his replacement in the Republican Party. That could be anybody from Mark Robinson, who I doubt because he endorsed Tillis, but then also people like Lara Trump of all folks. So this could be really crazy. Now, some other people might be saying, well, you guys are kind of zealous and you're really just purity spiraling if you're going to get rid of Tillis, who votes with Trump most of the time. Now, here's the misconception with voting records. Just because you vote with Trump 90% of the time does not mean that you're consistently going to be clutch. And by clutch, I mean the thing that makes you a really good politician. So in the case of a big, beautiful bill, that counts as one bill. So that might only change your vote with Trump record of like by 1 or 2 percentage points. But what matters are the big bills, the repeal of Obamacare, funding the wall, this big, beautiful bill, the stuff that matters. And Thom Tillis is not there when it matters. You know who was, ironically enough? Mitch McConnell. Yes, Turtle Mitch. Apparently, Cocaine Mitch McConnell, who's married to somebody who's affiliated with the CCP allegedly, voted for the big, beautiful bill, yet a guy like Thom Tillis, who owes his career to Trump largely, is nowhere to be found. Further salt into the injury, okay? Lisa Murkowski, yes, that one, voted for the big, beautiful bill, and actually Rand Paul, of all people, and Thom Tillis voted against it. Again, very stupid move by him. Now, Lisa Murkowski, just to elaborate on this, Lisa Murkowski had said in an interview recently that if the Senate were to become 50-50 Democrat-Republican in 2026, that she would actually consider becoming a Democrat to give them the majority. That sort of Republican is actually more based, apparently, on the issue of the big, beautiful bill than is Thom Tillis of North Carolina. So then you also may be asking, how does Thom Tillis defend himself? You can get one side of the story, but what's the other side? So he defends himself here, and I'll give you the TLDR summary of this. Let's just start with the top, okay? I will always do what is best in the best interest of North Carolina, even when that puts me at odds with my own party. When Senate leaders of my party presented the bill, I did what every American should expect of their senator and worked to gather the facts and comprehensively and analyze what the impact would be on the people I swore an oath to represent. Now, here's the thing, right? Just to pick it apart a little. You were meant to represent the agenda of the North Carolinian people. Now the thing is that Donald Trump, for the most part, has been more popular in the state of North Carolina than Thom Tillis has been. Not by a lot, but still. So basically, Donald Trump is a better representative of those people than is Thom Tillis. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just look at his electoral history. You look at North Carolina, and Trump has won it in 2016, 20, and 24 indisputably. Now, when you look at Thom Tillis, he ran in a Republican wave year for Senate in 2014. Now, he beat Kay Hagan, the incumbent, by 1.5 percentage points. Now, that is an underperformance of at least 1% in the generic ballot. Generic ballot, by the way, meaning the average vote, Republican, Democrat, disregarding whatever office they voted for, but just the partisanship of the race. I know, pretty nerdy, but that's what it was. Thom Tillis underperformed here. 2020, he did a little better. I'm not going to lie. So in 2020, he ran against Cal Cunningham, who was leading him in the polls. Trump won the state, by the way, and they both won by about 1.5%. That being said, Cal Cunningham had a cheating scandal. In fact, me, before my balls dropped, made a video about it like 5 years ago. Now, this second blurb is where the selfishness of a particular politician really shows. Now, keep in mind this. The big, beautiful bill has cuts to the budget. Of course, we talk about debt reduction. We talk about deficit reduction. The federal government is its own entity, of course, but it's comprised of 50 states. So when you cut the general debt, you're also going to be defunding certain parts of states' economies, obviously. Now, North Carolinian Senator apparently has been saying for decades, hey, we should cut the debt and we need to balance the budget. But it just never occurred to him, unless he's playing dumb, which he is, by the way, that apparently some things need to be cut out of the state of Carolina, North Carolina's budget. He says here, I did homework on behalf of North Carolinians, and I cannot support the bill in the current form. It would result in tens of billions of dollars in lost funding for North Carolina, including our hospitals and rural communities. This would force the state to make painful decisions like eliminating Medicaid coverage for hundreds of thousands in the expansion population. That's cap, by the way, bull crap. In even reducing critical service for those in the traditional Medicaid population. Now, if you read the bill, I didn't, but I've looked up the bullet points, and I'll tell you, basically, the Medicaid reform is that they're going to more or less make people prove that they cannot work. And if you can work physically, then you need to work at least 80 hours a month, which roughly is 20 hours a week. Okay. So what they're saying is that, hey, look, if you're, let's say, 66 and you're completely healthy and you can work 20 hours, I don't know, doing anything, being a librarian, anything, then you should do that, because why are you going to be on welfare of some sort or an entitlement if you can produce and contribute to the economy? Now, that's kind of a sucky thing. That's an austerity measure. That's no fun for anyone. But when we're talking about reducing the debt, you have to do it somewhere. Okay, so somebody has to bite a bullet somewhere, and every other senator agreed to this sort of provision that voted for it. Yet Thom Tillis thinks he's better than everyone else. He thinks North Carolina is more important than Wisconsin, than is Michigan, than is whatever, which is just stupid. Now, third blur. We can and must do better than this. The Senate should return to the House's Medicaid approach. The plan includes common sense reforms to address waste, fraud, and abuse, and implements work requirements for some able-bodied adults. So again, these are all semantics. And honestly, if you look into the process of bills, once you vote for it to go ahead, you get to then amend it after. So for him to complain about little details like this and quibbles is stupid when they're going to get rectified afterwards. So this is just a performative stunt, which is a really bad risk cost calculation for him, because he's really just getting what? The benefit of the doubt from Democrats and maybe some independents. But then at the cost of MAGA, you're going to lose the primary before you even get to the general election in a swing state. It's rough. Anyway, there is a lot for North Carolinians to love about the rest of the big beautiful bill, including extending the tax cuts, increasing child tax credit, yada yada yada. Okay, so he first complains about the bill and then he glazes it at the end. He compliments it at the end. Very stupid logic, honestly. You should have started by being sugarcoating it and then be honest at the end. This is just a really bad look. What's my takeaway to end the video? Basically, Thom Tillis should go. I think that it does kind of make it a more difficult race to win in 2024 when you're not running an incumbent with name recognition and you're running a completely new person. But Donald Trump gets to pick who is going to get endorsed by him. So we'll see. I trust the plan. I trust the president. Hopefully, we'll get rid of this sucker pretty soon. As I leave you guys with a crying Gavin Newsom, which we all love to see, I'm going to remind you that I'm going to make another video very soon. Comment down below what it should be next. Also, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want more content like this, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Adios.